Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight for the April History Cafe featuring the Black Farmers Collective. I'm Sora, I work here at MOHAI, and really excited to have you here today. Historylink, we are so happy to partner with them to present the History Cafe series on the third Wednesday of every month. And before we start, I'd like to let you all know that the restrooms are located through those cafe doors and around the corner if you just take a left. So please feel free to meet your needs at any time. We like to keep History Cafe a really intimate and nice setting, so please feel free to get up as you need to. Yeah. And as part of grounding in the space, tonight we're gonna be talking about land and food and justice. And so as part of that, it's important to acknowledge that here at MOHAI, we're on the historic and contemporary lands and waters of the Suquamish, Duwamish, Muckleshoot, and all Coast Salish people. And historically, Native communities were forcibly removed from this place, with lasting impacts on the land, people, and environment. And today, we respect with deep gratitude the continued endurance of these people and their continued stewardship of this land. So we would like to encourage you to visit the websites of local tribes to learn more about the people whose land you're on. So to give a little introduction to the Black Farmers Collective, they're an amazing group of farmers and organizers talking about Black joy and creating spaces for wonderful food systems. And so we're really excited to have them. So let them introduce themselves and please give them a warm round of applause.
You want to start? Yep, okay. Yeah, age before beauty, I guess. Welcome everyone. My name is Ray Williams. I'm one of the co-founders and managing directors of the Black Farmers Collective. My pronouns are he, his. I think in terms of identity, I'm mixed race. I really represent, I think, part of that diversity of the African American experience. My dad's black, my mom's white. I'm born in Seattle. And growing up, that was interesting. I'm born in the 50s, right? Growing up in Seattle. And so, I'll be sharing a bit about the history of our farm, and being the old guy, I'll be sharing the old pictures. Mm-hmm. And it's been quite interesting to work with MOHAI and have access to some of their photos and really think about what it was like when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Here, and then of course earlier, because the history is a lot earlier. Yeah.
Thanks for introducing yourself. Hello everyone, my name is Tajanique. It's Tajinique, like Dominique, but Tajanique, or you can call me Taj. I am the Yes Farm manager this year, and this is my third season farming. I'm just now learning still more. I will share a little bit more of my story later, but yes, I'm very new to farming. I'm still learning to love vegetables, still learning to love all of the dirt and the bugs that come with it. Working with the earth and working with other people is very, very important to me. Working with the folks around me and their mission and our mission together just has been very inspiring. So I thank you all for taking the time out of your day to be here, to listen, and to learn something new, and to hopefully connect through this digital tour that we're going to take. Naruto! Through Yes Farm.
Awesome. Thank you both. That was beautiful. Greetings, everyone. My name is Yewa, Y-E-A-W-A. I am an Oakland, California native. I use any pronoun, and I'll be going into my third growing season this year. I also am the co-manager at Small X Farm, which is our 4.2-acre farm out in Woodinville, Redmond area. I also co-manage that farm with one of our other team members, Masra, M-A-S-R-A. Yeah. And yeah, we have a couple different things going on there that I'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, thank y'all for being here, and we're definitely looking forward to speaking with y'all and sharing about what we've been doing at Yes Farm and within the Black Farmers Collective for the past several years. So.
Cool. I got control of the remote, so let's get into it. We're going to show you a few photos going into this. First, we're going to share with you our mission, and then we're going to break down the mission a little bit, and then Yewa will be sharing a little bit about themselves and their experience inside of Black Farmers Collective. So, what are we about? Take it away, Ray.
Yeah, so we started the Black Farmers Collective as it's a group of Black urban farmers, and we got a chance to farm the freeway right away at Yes Farm, and so out of that came a need to really have a mission, right? The mission, what are we, and so, we're an organ. I started as a former science teacher, understanding that there was first disparities in outcomes of education, which we're still trying to work on. I worked with disparities of health, and I felt that a way to give back to my community was to get some folks growing a little of their own food, to be connected to the land. So, the Black Farmers Collective mission, right, is to actually build a black-led food system. Not that we want to be exclusive, but we want to be intentional about being able to say that it's important to be able to say that. And so in that, we are trying to get land, because that's very important. We have Yes Farm, small acts you'll learn about. We have ideas about buying a farm in Western Washington, but we hope that there's support out there for doing that. But I'm also, I think, as a science teacher, wanting to understand the food system, and so, understanding that there's growers, but there's that folks that need to transport that material, right? We store, we do value added, we market it, and we cook it, and then even if you don't cook, we're all part of the food system, right? You eat it, right? And so I think that's a piece, and I think if you want to have a space that in order to do that, I think you need some control of some space, and I think it needs to be explicit that it's about joy, that liberation can't come just from hard work, but that creating a space for joy. And so this is the mission that we have. It was developed by our still current, but we have a few more board members in a collaborative way. And I think that's how we try to run it, is a collaborative organization. That's our mission.
This is the breakdown, in my words, of what do we mean by food system, and that's everything in between food production and waste. Food system actors, when I first heard that, I was like, huh? But that's literally what Ray said. You and me, folks who cook food, chefs, processors, microorganisms that make up the dirt and stuff like that. Black liberation, what is that to us? Or to me, Black folks' autonomy, which we believe leads to everyone's autonomy in space and time. That's why we center Black folks, because we believe that with everything else, everyone else gets freedom within that. Next, we'll have Yewa share their story a little bit about how they got into farming and just any quirky little things you want to share with us too.
Awesome. Awesome, thank you. That was great. Yeah, so how did I get started farming? I'm originally an Oakland, California native. I've been out in Seattle for 7 or 8 years now. And I didn't really think I would be a farmer. I knew I liked being outside and stuff like that. But I started volunteering over at Yes Farm, I think back in 2019. I make this joke where I say where it was literally, so our website is more built out now, and before it was just literally a little square and it had a pin to where Yes Farm was. And there I was doing a research project essentially on Black liberation and joy through a horticultural, ancestral, and spiritual lens. And so I was on Google trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I didn't know if it was going to be farming. I didn't know if I was going to be, working with youth or anything like that. From then, Googled farmers in my area, essentially. Yes Farm popped up, and I moseyed on over there. This was in, 2019 or so. I got the opportunity to meet Ray, Hannah, and just other community members, essentially. And I carried out a couple different oral history kind of projects there through talking to community. And Hannah and Ray really built up this space that was very inclusive, that was Black-led, that also centered, lowering the barriers of folks getting food, which I thought was incredible, especially being from Oakland, California, the Bay Area, and seeing people around me just kind of struggle with food, not really knowing their relationship to food, and also being someone who grew up in poverty, eating beans and rice for years on end. So I got to meet Ray and Hannah, and from there carried out that project, and I spent about 2 or 3 years volunteering. Volunteering, got to meet folks, got to interview folks, got to tend to the land. I also got to know myself better, which was a huge aspect of being on the land for me. Not only through talking to other folks, right, but being out there just going through life and the stillness that Yes Farm is and was and still is, but also the noise and everything in between. It just gave me a space to really be present, but to also ground myself, to also meet new people. I carried out my project, and then 3 years ago, I got employed here, and it's really been, revitalizing, and within learning myself prior, I feel like that journey just continues as I'm learning about farming, about myself, about my community, kind of like what Taj says, I feel like the learning never stops, rather it's about the nutrition in food, rather it's about soil, rather it's about any aspect of farming. I'm continuously learning from our elders, from my coworker, Masra, M-A-S-R-A, from Taj and Ray. That's a little bit about my story and my background. And I hope to be doing this for a while, honestly, so.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank
that
you.
was awesome.
Yeah.
All right, for more photos, where is Yes Farm? So we say it's 715 Yesler Way. That's not a real address, but if you are walking down Yesler Way, you'll see a bridge over the freeway. I'm not very good with directions, so let's get into the pictures. So if you're looking here, that is towards the city, going towards the water, west water. That is where we're looking here. And then on the other side is where you'll see the freeway, and then going up towards Yesler, the community center. You want to say anything else about the placement?
No, that's where it is. If you want to visit, folks do have a hard time finding it. So I say the pedestrian entrance is behind the bus stop. Mm-hmm. And that's how you can get there. Right, we when thinking about this presentation, we decided, and this is really Taj's sort of vision of just taking a walk through the farm. And so a lot of we got lucky on a Saturday that it was sunny when we took a lot of pictures, right? And so that's what you'll see, and then interspersed, other photos. But we'd like you to think about it as sort of a walk through and then sharing our story. It's an odd place to have a farm, I think, the freeway right away, right? We're right next to Yester Terrace, the original housing project, and now redevelopment. So now we're farming next to a mountain, really, the development there. Yeah, I'll tell more, I think, when we see the picture of before, as a way to start to tell the story of this space.
Totally. Something I want to share that Ray told me a while ago was right here, right, with Skid Row, is where they did all the logging and pushed them down the hill. But we'll get into that a little bit more later. But it's cool that, I'm seeing it in real time, and then seeing the photo. It's wild.
Oh.
Here it is.
And here we are. So, this is a historic photo. Thank you, MOHAI, for letting us use this this photo. What you see is a hill rising up to the east from Seattle, right? That tall building in the middle is the original Harbor View, and now you don't even see it as a tall building because it's surrounded by the rest of the development. And those white low two-story buildings are Seattle's vision of housing projects, right? Yester Terrace was the first housing project in Seattle. It was actually the first integrated housing project in the country. Before that, there were lots of attempts by government and other agencies to house people, but we kept with the original founding and the development of the United States in terms of residential segregation, right? And so they had housing for white people that needed it, and they had housing for black people. But Seattle was an experiment, and Yester Terrace. So when I was growing up in Seattle, I went to Franklin High School. So I had a lot of friends around the city, and many of them lived in Yester Terrace. So it was it was still sort of a densely populated place that you didn't necessarily want to go at night, but it wasn't the housing projects of the movies that you see, throughout the country. What you see is that hill above, and really right down the middle is Yesler, and that was Skid Row. But I want to even go back in time, and we didn't have a picture when that was just a forested hillside, right? And the original stewards of the land were here, really from time immemorial. And when the first settlers, colonists came, they saw the land. I think Captain Vancouver said that it was untouched, by human hands. He did not see the years, generations of forest management, right? That was happening at the time, right? And so Sora mentioned the native folks got pushed out. The hillside was logged, and because it was steep, you could just skid the logs down to the sawmill. And the wood from the sawmill went to build their old Seattle, right? Now that's since burned down, and we have a brick one, right? But before it was wood, but the sawdust actually went to fill in the bay, and that was the first. Not only cutting the forest, but the first environmental degradation of the area was actually filling in the large estuary that is now the Duwamish River, and we can see that from the farm, and so it gives me an opportunity to share what, we look now out and it's, very productive commercial space. But before it was very productive environmental space. So I think when we introduced the farm, we like to talk about the original stewards, and we're not the owners. Actually, technically it's owned by the Department of Transportation, right? But we are the current stewards. And so if we think about that as a way of just trying to improve the space, to take care of it, to share it, to create a space. And so after this photo was actually before Yesser Terrace, it was a lot of working class, pretty dilapidated housing. And I've done some work with the Japanese American community in Seattle, and one thing I read was that some of the parents were very excited that there was a good place to live, to move into, as Yesser Terrace. I think it really served a lot of the community in Seattle. After Yesser Terrace was built, I-5 came through there, and so probably sort of right through the middle of that picture now is I-5. And they actually took some of the Seattle Housing Authority land to build the freeway. When I was in negotiations with Seattle Housing Authority, they were the ones that suggested the freeway right-of-way might be a farm. And so I was able, with some other folks, to put together a coalition to actually bid for the space. And I think it's a story, that bit of the story is about, we're just a few urban farmers. We can't compete with the large organizations, but we did, and we got the space. And I think if that's anything, I hope that bit of the story about the forming of Black Farmers Collective, is about trying to see a vision and then just trying to go for it. It's a story. I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't been able to travel and see it for myself. So part of my mission, I think, is to allow other people to see what's out there, and they can be inspired. So we have some example here. Right? This is, y'all have done great work. Thank you. We're going to see what it looks like today.
At the farm. Thank you for sharing that. So we have a greenhouse, and this is one of our first structural buildings at Yes Farm. This is what it was looking like before, or in progress, and it served a great purpose. We grew okra in here. Y'all. We grew okra in the PNW in the greenhouse. That is just really awesome. And so if you can dream it, you can do it, I promise, in certain conditions. And yes?
If I can, you notice to the left of the greenhouse is a field. Now, if you go to the other photo, and you talk about the no more field.
Big building.
You want to talk about the art?
Yes, let's get into the art really quick, and just art in general and its purpose at Yes Farm. But we had a few high school students come committed every week to Yes Farm with one of our residential artists named Vega Simone, and the service board, also with Gay City. And these high school students came in every day and sat and had deep discussions about how they wanted to move through the world, and they had them at the farm. And then they had discussions about how they wanted to move with their art through the world, and then how they wanted to display it on the greenhouse. And so this is really their vision of what the Duwamish is to them, the land that they're on looks like. And on the side, we didn't get a picture, but there's like the Duwamish River that was originally there, and yeah, we got a little totem pole which is really cool. It just tells a story about the history of the farm. And then also throughout the farm, we have cisterns, which are giant storage units to hold water. We have local artists spray paint those as well with culturally historical figures, black folks, historical black figures on those cisterns. And that's just another way we get to share our story. And it's cool because it's like, who else would draw on the side of a water tank, you know? And it's like fitting because it's in the city and we get tagged a lot. So it's a very beautiful display of how folks can share their story and share our story, and also express themselves, and then teach others and bring the whole community in with them on how to spray paint, because I didn't know some of these techniques, and I got to sit down with them and hear about their lives and get to spray paint, and it was just a very beautiful connective experience, although we're in between such like freeway and construction. There's these sweet moments that happen on the farm that you just feel really grounded in amongst the chaos. Did you want to share about the building?
Oh, yeah. Well, to the left is Yesler Towers, and it's if you've seen it go up there, it's really changing the skyline on the east side of I-5. And so it's one of the developments of the redevelopment of Yesler Terrace. You know, Yesler Terrace was built in the 40s, and so 60 years later, these wood-framed buildings really had come to the end of their life. And so, you know, the redevelopment is really a story of, just like I think the original coming to the space, of moving people around. Seattle Housing Authority started to tear down some of the buildings and move some of the residents to other spaces. They, does anybody here live in Yesler Terrace? Anybody want to share anything? Or, you know, I invited someone, they weren't able to make it, but you know, it's another story, I think, of moving people around, and people, you know, had to move to other projects and other parts of the city. In order to pay for the new buildings, the Seattle Housing Authority sold some of the land, and the land next to the farm was sold to private developers. And so this is Sioux Development. It's quite a large tower. But it's been an interesting relationship with the contractors, and all through the building of the farm, whether it was the contractors that were building the road that helped us move a 20-foot container onto the farm, or whether it was the contractors that are building another apartment that lifted 6 giant super sacks worth of donated soil onto the farm rather than having to carry it individually. It's been an interesting relationship, I think, in growing and changing the space. And I think when folks look at the new Yesler Terrace, some remember the old, and then you know, others remember before that was there. I think the next slide talks a bit about art. I think this was one of the things, and I can't quite read exactly the purpose of art. Can someone read that for me?
The function of art is to imagine what is impossible, or what is possible, bell hooks.
And so that's a quote. This was written on the side of one of the buildings at Yesler Terrace. And that inspired me, I think, to think about the farm not only in terms of just a space to grow food or a space to build community around that, but also a space for art, right? And you know, we've been able to do that. And so we will at the end invite you to come down, but we'd love to have you come and see the art and see the life that we're creating down there. So that's that space. And again, it's a reminder that you know, Yesler Terrace had they were 2-story row houses that you probably pay if they're new now $700,000 or $800,000 to get into something. And then folks had yards, and now folks are living in apartments there. So it's a change. Yeah.
Cool. So next, what we have here is the community garden, which we have folks from Yesler Terrace and then also folks who just have a relationship with us at Yes Farm come and grow their own food for the community, for themselves. We have great relationships with the folks who come here, and they share a lot of their knowledge on how to grow because farming looks so different. It's never just this one thing, so sharing with the community gardeners has been really cool, learning their techniques. Yeah, that's, you want to share anything about the community garden?
I guess all I'll say is that, you know, that's a late spring picture. But the community garden itself, I think, it really, you know, I guess another history story. They were tearing down the old Yesler Terrace, and when they boarded up the windows of the and doors of the apartment, they left plywood. And so we collected that plywood and built the raised beds, the original raised beds out of that. We actually cut some of the chain link fence, the old chain link fence, and pounded them in the ground, and that is part of our fence. So we feel like we're recycling some of the old Yesler physically, but I think also, you know, sort of we're trying to keep that going, and part of that is having residents come and farm with us. Yeah. Yeah.
Those look like regular pea patch places. Are they pea patches or are they your own?
Good question.
They're sort of modeled after the pea patch program in that each one of those boxes was or is, you know, a resident that they can grow what they like there.
So it is a person or a family has each of those?
Yes, has access to that and can plant what they want. We try to supply them, and if we have extra starts, we give them. We try to support that effort because it's also about building community here. Yeah, you want to add? You know, this is the history slide, and this was back in '67, so I was in, I guess, late elementary school. But there's been farming going on at Yesler Terrace, you know, since then. People had yards. There's been black farmers since then, right? I think our vision of a farmer is not necessarily a black family like this here. And they, I guess this family won the garden contest that year. And it was interesting. Again, thank you, Museum of History and Industry, for saving this and you know, sending us a link on that. Yes, the Wilson family. I haven't done the research to see if any of the Wilson kids are around. That would be interesting. But I think that's a piece of some of the work we do, is to try to change that. If you want folks to be more healthy by eating better, then you have to, at least I think, show folks that look like them doing that, right? And so if we want to diversify the farmers, and there's a lot of older farmers, if we want to attract young people to be farmers, then we have to start to show people that farmers look like everything, that all folks are farmers. And I think, you know, we all our cultures came from an agricultural background, right? Some of the folks that are moving to the U.S. right now are actually moving from agricultural work, and so that's one of them. Maybe we'll get Yewa to talk a bit about small acts in terms of that piece, and then we'll go on with this.
Yeah, thanks. Good plug. Yeah, over at Small Axe, our 4.2 acre farm in Woodinville, we have an incubator farming program. An incubator farming program traditionally is done with like a contract. The person would sign a contract, and they have a plot of land that they can tend to and grow whatever foods they would like. And they usually have, there's usually a cost. And sometimes there's a cost for like the resources, but right now, as we're in this process of building up community at Small Axe, we have 3 incubator farmers, and we're not so much on that scale yet. It's been real community based. So we have Ken and Ranga, who are some incubator farmers. They have about an acre of land. They grew this really, really beautiful, tall African corn last year. That was incredible. And these folks take their foods back to their communities, or they sell it at the farmer's market. They kind of do whatever they want with their food and produce. We also have another incubator farmer. Her name is Marie, and she grows all types of peas and greens and stuff like that. And then we have Ross, who is one of our incubator farmers, who also does peppers. He does, what is it called?
Hot sauce?
Hot sauce, added value. Oh. He does added value products with like oregano, thyme, seasonings, and like Taj was saying, hot sauce. But these folks, I believe Ken and Rong are from Tanzania. I can't remember where Maria's from.
I think Marie's from Tanzania and Ken and Rong are from Zimbabwe.
There we go. Ken and Rong are from Zimbabwe, and Marie is from Tanzania. And yeah, just the aspect of them, growing just various culturally relevant foods for themselves, for their communities, has really been really beautiful. And did anyone want to add anything else?
Well, I've gotten the honor to get to know these incubator farmers and see the types of things that they grow and see the different techniques that they use. Ranga and I are in a farm class called Viva Farms, and Ranga was asking, why are we using plastic to cover up, to get rid of weeds? Like, aren't we about like not using more plastic? And when she goes back home, they don't use plastic at all. They do burlap sacks or to keep the worms and the microorganisms alive. And so just pushing back on some Western things that we're used to and that we're just used to seeing and that we're used to doing, but just seeing the different ways that we can collab and skill share has been really beautiful. And seeing them get their grow culturally relevant foods here for their communities has just been a game changer. So I agree.
Yeah, and I would add, I think a barrier for just farmers in general are costs, it's machinery, it's tools, it's resources. And since at Small Axe it's been very community-based, we give whatever resources that we kind of have, rather that's greenhouse space, seeds, whatever we can kind of provide, rather that's using a tractor on their plot, teaching them different whatever techniques that we know with our machinery. And just sharing the abundance of knowledge, kind of like what Taj was saying, back and forth. It's been a real cool, equal give and take. And they're incredible. They're awesome folks.
Yeah. I guess I want to do 2 shout-outs. One is to Ross, who sells Rude Boy hot sauce at Pike Place Market.
Please.
So he grew out of his house, and he does that. But we have given him an opportunity to expand that space, for economic development. I also want to shout out to King County because starting 30 or 40 years ago, they started buying up farmland because they saw the development, right? And so we're on one of 4 farms on 16 acres that they bought years ago. The other farmers are Hmong flower farmers. And these folks came over after one of our many failures of international relations, right? The Vietnam conflict, war. And so, an interesting story. I understand, again, just like the African farmers that we have, you come with knowledge, but you need to learn how to farm in a new space. And so the story I heard is actually the Japanese farmers that were here for generations and really farmed quite a bit, and that's another story of loss, land loss. Helped these new American farmers, and so really some of King County land actually really started these the flowers that you see at Pike Place Market, right? When you go out and buy those beautiful dahlias, that's the result of the labor of folks that are working. In many cases, some of the cases, they're on, King County land, and so King County has been very supportive of us in terms of allowing us a relatively cheap lease, and they're also putting a lot of money back into infrastructure on their farmlands. So, again, thanks to King County, really for that. So, and yeah, it's a great story. I think a Small Axe, it really represents what we're about at the Black Farmers Collective, right? Which is to try to build this system that will be compatible and fit just hand in hand with the rest of the food system here. And so we have a couple of farmers coming up here right now, right? So that can only make this old guy proud, right? That we have opportunity to do that.
Nice. And then I think I'll segue into sharing a little bit of my story with Yes Farm. All right.
Is there a picture of you there?
Let's see.
Let's go there. At least we could see it.
Oh, just joking.
They can see you right there.
Okay, y'all can see
That's
me
okay.
right there to the right. Y'all
There's Taj.
to your right. All right. So I was born in Akron, Ohio, but raised in Burien, Washington, just down the way. I grew up in a family that was living in poverty, and so at a young age, I experienced houselessness and also being on my own in that. And so really all my life just seeking community, seeking just good folks to be around and good folks that could help me get through this life. And so I ended up getting adopted by my high school teacher, and she took me in, and the family is awesome, and they really care about me, and to this day, they are still caring for me and still putting into my life, so I really love them. But within that was just this huge confusion of identity, huge confusion of like what to eat, because at times I didn't have things to eat, or what was mine, because at times things weren't mine, but I had to take them, and so I was just going through this giant, huge identity crisis, and just really just my hands out looking for someone, looking for people, just to learn how to do life from. And so that continued on into college, just learning, trying to be around folks. And out of college, I made friends with Yewa, and Yewa was at the farm, invited me to the farm. And I saw black folks laughing, growing food, just chilling in the sun, and I was like, I was really confused, and I was really happy. And I decided that I wanted to keep coming back, so I did, and I kept volunteering, and I still am trying to learn what's so cool about vegetables, and I'm still trying to learn what is so cool about food justice. What does that even mean? I know that I am very justice-oriented just because of my background, but I didn't know that food also needed justice, because I wasn't used to that. But yeah, slowly creating community through coming through the volunteer days, and then we asked for a job one day because we're like, we really like this. This is really cool. And then Ray kind of expanded his vision for us and allowed us to have a job. And through that, I learned how to take care of myself, how to take care of my community, how to work with folks around me, and how to create a good, a balanced work environment where we can show up and be authentic, and where we can show up and just really fight for the people and give food where it needs to go. I also learned that this is not just about food, right? I learned a lot about my mental health. Like what Yewa was saying, it was just a big reflection back on my whole life and how I want to be in the world, and how I want to be with my biological family, and how I want to be with my adopted family, and the types of opportunities I want everyone to have. And so through this farm, I feel like I'm able to branch off those opportunities through the Black liberation that I'm experiencing. And my mom, my biological mom, and my sister, they're really good at making collard greens, and I get to grow them, and I go home and bring them back, and it's even better than I've ever had before. And so it's just a really full circle moment, and I never thought that I would be in in a space with bugs, with dirt, enjoying it, getting stung by bees, enjoying it, still working through it. Black Farmers Collectives is way much more than farming. It's more about the survival of everyone around us. And so I really appreciate the mission because, like I've always said, Yewa and I, Masra, we're just direct recipients of what that mission is. Black-led folks doing what we want in the world. Given tools, thanks to Ray for your mentorship, honestly, through it all, because you're not that old, but you are my elder, and I really look up to you, and I look up to the knowledge that you bring to the table, and then also how you allow me to experiment and fail, because I'm new at it, and because I think maybe something cool will happen if we do it a different way. So it's all about collaborating, it's all about butting heads, it's all about making it work for real, and feeding people, bottom line. And I also know that Yes Farm is not what you think about when you see a farm. It's this urban setting, it's really skinny, there's dirt, not dirt, there's trash most days that you're there because people do walk through the farm. And there are city folks, there are folks who are struggling out there who use the farm to sleep as a safe space at night. And it does turn into something more, more oftentimes than not. But it's a very sacred, special place. But that's how I got started, and that's how I kind of look to it. And I'm inspired by Yewa a lot when it comes to rest, because they came into this farming thing talking about this is hard work, so we're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to be mindful about how we use these tools. We're going to be mindful about how much time we spend in the sun, and we're going to be mindful about our psyche and how we come into the space. And so that's been like my biggest motivator moving forward, wanting to see that for all of you guys, just as human beings moving through this space, and then also wanting it for myself. So thank you for allowing me to share that. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you. You know, I want on the, so there's Taj on one side. The other side is, you know, a picture of Hannah Wilson, you know, masked up because we really started the farm during COVID, right? You know, it gave us an opportunity and other folks to be able to come and work outside and build community. And so, you know, Hannah now works in food justice and Skyway, but was really instrumental in getting the farm started and working. We worked together. You see some of the soil amendments that we got donated and added to the soil there. You know, as a process of building the field. So I think we, you know, Hannah really left their mark on the farm.
For sure.
Continues to be part of the history of the development of Yes Farm. Yeah.
This is what that field looked like before any of the beds were made. So just some bushes, still beautiful. And right here, we have this container at Yes Farm, is where we put all of our tools and papers and wheelbarrows, stuff like that underneath. And right here is Noon, or Nar, building the top structure of it. Sorry, I took your slide. And then this is kind of like what it looks like now. So it's been here a few years. Let me tell you what happens underneath here. Really, really deep, cool discussion, silly singing, dancing sometimes. When we have events, sometimes we throw cookouts. Our friend Liza fed like 200 people underneath this thing. Yes, I know you can't see the vision, but one day come on the cookout day, you're going to see it. But yeah, this is also a really special spot to me on Yes Farm, because a lot of conversation, a lot of people get fed underneath here. And it's a shelter for folks as well. Not as intended, but it works that way.
It does.
You want to say anything about the space? You want to say anything about the space? Take a walk with me. And like we were saying, Yes Farm is not just a place to farm. It's like folks take walks through there. They take their family in there to sit and eat lunch sometimes. Folks just enjoy the sunset. It's a place to gather. It's a place to cry. I'll be crying sometimes in the crops. Yeah, a place to just exist as you are and as you move through the world. Take a walk with me through the terraces. This is our first professionally built structure, and I'll have Ray talk about a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you. So this is, again, the freeway right-of-way. It's a long, skinny stretch of land. I think originally it was planned as a northbound exit to Yesler from I-5. And so if you're driving into the city, take a look up there, if you're a passenger, to see to see where we are in terms of the farm. But we've been able to build this farm with partnerships with lots of folks, and this was actually built with a grant from the Rose Foundation, and this foundation is partially responsible for spending the money that the Puget Sound keepers have sued polluters of Puget Sound for, right? And so the terraces, and we have the rainwater collection barrels are a result of some of that money. The idea is that we're slowing the rainwater that comes off of the farm that then goes into the sewer and can overflow our system if we get a lot of rain. So it's a sort of a rainwater slowing device, but it also then allows us a lot more territory to grow food. And so this has been a big thing. Oh yeah, well, you don't plan these things, and we have about 5 minutes before Q&A. So, we're getting there.
We are getting there.
And then in the background is another one of the apartment buildings. And so as we grow and as these apartments start to fill with folks, we're hoping to get more support. One of the reasons we've been able to hire folks and to create this system is that we're not just trying to, pay the mortgage by selling lettuce. Right? It's a nonprofit organization, and that then supports that. And I do want to, big shout out to a lot of the donors and folks that have been out there to support us. And I think we came along at a good time. Mm-hmm. If the pandemic was a good time, mm-hmm. if the murder of George Floyd was a good time, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't, but it allowed folks to think about, hey, what do we stand for here in the States, right? How do we want to support each other? How do we want to support organizations? So I think, we got a lot of support from that, and that gave us this kickoff, right? Some of the COVID money allowed us to really get this thing started, and so we're really happy about that. We're wrapping up our time, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about the future. We've got 2 projects going. This is a long, skinny. And I guess we could add a map. But at the north end is Yesler, and it's a little bit of a steep walk to get to the farm. And so one of our initiatives is to actually build an ADA access ramp, right? We realize that, healthy food and a healthy cultural space, we can't be designed where we try to keep people from coming down. And so it's a real equity issue. And so the land is Seattle Department of Transportation land, and it's been quite an adventure for us to try to get this done. But it's a great learning experience for all of us to try to negotiate how do we get first permission to use the land, and then the permit, how do we build it. But it's an exciting future, right, that puts us on the map. The other project is at the south end of the farm, and this is between Yesler and Jackson. Looking up under the freeway at Jackson, we now, after 5 years of good behavior on the top end, have been given an extension of the lease. So we're starting to pull out the ivy and the invasive species and plant native plants underneath the deodar cedar, which is a sort of Middle Eastern cedar, the Washington Department of Transportation cedar, tree. But that's, again, another exciting project, for the future. So if you're cruising down Yesler, take a look to the south and check out the farm. If you're going under Jackson, take a look. I think, we're bound by the freeway, and, this is just our opportunity to try to do a little mitigation of what that freeway did to the community in terms of cutting it in half, right? And if we can beautify and start to beautify underneath the freeway, we hope that'll be the next piece here. So I think that wraps up our time and our story and our slides. I want to thank Taj for putting the Prezi together, right? I'm an old, boring PowerPoint science teacher, so this was a beautiful exercise, in terms of learning, and we do want to open it up for some questions or thoughts or something to let us share a little bit.
If you could raise your hand, I'll run this mic over to you. I think my colleague Rachel also has another microphone on the other side of the room, so yeah.
I know there is a international district garden that's almost just right directly on the other side of your farm. I wonder about, do you have collaboration agreements, or do you share information, land, seeds with that group?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's the Danny Wu Garden.
I couldn't remember that.
Yeah, and it's a, it came out of the extended civil rights work in Seattle in the 70s about really having Chinatown, at that time Chinatown, and then International District, and now Chinatown International District, really have some self-determination about not just being wiped out. If you remember, they built the Kingdom, and that took a lot of that community. And so part of that was community effort by Uncle Bob Santos to support the community. And I guess Danny Wu had some land on the side of the hill, and they were able to build a community garden there. So we definitely collaborate, in terms of that, sharing knowledge. About that, we're the little sister, maybe, of the little sibling of Danny Wu, and we hope we're around right for 50 years like they have been. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, bringing that. Oh, he's got one more question.
I'm interested in your use of the word space and developing space. I mean, you go back and forth a little bit between place, and you use space a great deal in describing what it is that you're doing. And in some other things, I've heard use of the word space as implying that the land has much more value. It's a three-dimensional, multi-dimensional place within which people can exist and share and speak and breathe. And I wonder if you'd like to talk a little bit about that, if I'm interpreting correctly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, see, this is the way we learn every day here. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say space. Yeah, I think you hit on several different points. It's like, and we've kind of shared, like, yes, like we grow food, but we also host these cookouts. We also host community events. They also hold tours at Yes Farm. Sometimes there's discussion. So it's kind of a space where you can kind of take up space, right? That doesn't always mean working. That doesn't always mean, it can mean many different things. And kind of as Ray and Taj were saying, just being able to imagine what that could look like. Bringing whatever that looks like to Yes Farm. Rather you want to bring a book, rather you want to bring a hammock and lay out. If you want to work, it can just look a myriad of different ways. And I'm sure there's ways we haven't seen the way it's looked, how people can take up space in that space, right? I think something that we've also advertised more in the past couple years is allowing folks to come through with their own organizations or own ideas and doing something on the land, right? So we had a dance class on the land, you know what I mean? We've had capoeira on the land. So It doesn't always have to look like work. It doesn't always have to look like we're farmers, right? But we're humans. We're existing in community, right? We're existing in space. So I think kind of interweaving these various different, these various different ways of existing in the world, all that can be done on the farm. Like Taj was saying, people come through and rest, you know what I mean? Sleep. People come through and sit. I remember we met this guy named Dan, and he commutes on his bike. He works at the hospital, the Kaiser up the way, and he was on his bike. And Taj and I were at the farm late one day, and we saw him chilling in the greenhouse just with the beer, hanging out. And we just got to talking, and he was like, oh, I do this every day, just about, on my way home. And we didn't know, you know what I mean, because we're not there at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, but we just happened to have a longer day that summer. And he's like, yeah, I've been coming here for the past 7 months. And then he gifted us a cactus, you know what I mean? So there's various different ways that people exist at Yes Farm, and enjoy the space. So I hope that answers your question too. Mm-hmm.
Have you grown any crops that you thought wouldn't make it, wouldn't be as resilient, but they actually thrive in Washington State?
I think okra.
Okay.
That was
okra came up.
That was incredible. I remember last year, this isn't at Yes Farm, but I also went through the Viva Farms program. Some of my classmates, they decided to try to grow watermelon, and they weren't like these huge ones, right? But they were real watermelons. They got about this big, and just because our zones are changing, right? People are experimenting with different things. I currently am growing a little avocado. I didn't tell you this. A little avocado tree at my house, and it's doing really well. And I just took a seed, I put it in the dark, let it sprout, and I just planted it just to see what would happen. I don't know if it's going to ever bear fruit. I don't know if it'll ever get thick enough to become a tree, right? But yeah, just seeing and kind of playing around with what it could look like, especially, as climate change is such a real thing. How do we adjust, and how do we cultivate our seeds to be more resilient for what the various climate fluctuations might be. But those are my two that I thought were pretty cool.
And then I've been up to the space a couple of times. Have you ever thought about, as the city builds vertically, building, experimenting with vertical gardening?
I'll take that one. I'm always thinking about interesting and innovative ways and what we might be doing on the space. I think, I see a wall, and think about, well, can we run hops up the wall, or can we grow some other things, on this vertical space? I think what's so, it's such a blessing, I think, to have some space to be able to try to do those projects on. I certainly continue to have a little bit of, maybe an anxiety, about the fact that in some ways we took this land that was being used by unhoused folks, and when we first went through, there was a lot of intravenous drug use, right? Now there's more sort of fentanyl smoking, and turning this into a space for that. So I think in some ways we're gentrifiers of the space, but that gives us a responsibility to do the best we can with it. And I go back to this idea about not owning it, because we don't own it, but we are now the stewards. And by luck and grit and building of community and coalition, we've been able to get it and then keep it and develop it. And so I think my years of experience in travel and just liking to build things has allowed us to do that. And I'm starting to see that same sort of thing coming out of folks, where you get ideas about what we can do. And because we don't have this limit, we're certainly limited by things, but we don't live by this idea that we have to do everything the same, or that there is a best way. You know, what is the best way to farm the freeway right away, right? We sort of have a, no one really told us. So, so yeah, there's a new, but we'll share that. There's just always something new on the farm. Thanks.
And I would add to that, oh, nope, lost it. Anyways.
Do you have any programs or initiatives, or are you considering any, to do kind of, I don't even know what to call it, garden sharing, so that you're a nonprofit, so that people who have yards and they're not productive, but they could be productive food growing spaces, could become productive food growing spaces?
You know, that was one of my ideas, I think, early on when I was doing community gardening, is trying to organize that. You know, I think right now that's sort of a bandwidth issue. You know, in terms of that, I think we certainly would support folks trying to go out and organize their community in terms of growing. I think we could share some expertise, but, you know, I was, one thing about being in this business for a while, you know, I was, you know, was approached by some folks from an organization, right? They have some land, right? And so how do you, I think what we're in a position to do is to share some of what worked and what not worked with folks that want to be in their community and want to get together and do something. We can give them some ideas about which way to go. I think that'd be great. So if anyone is organizing folks and, you know, wants to see an example of what could be, then that's something that we can definitely share. Yeah. Did you all?
Hi, we missed the first half an hour in the beginning, and then there's my little one, 5th grader, right next to me.
Hi. Thank you for coming.
So would you explain a little bit the food justice, what it is, and how she could understand about what the way that she could take the food justice about?
Food justice, yeah. Anybody wanna, what do you think?
Well, I can start off because I'm still trying to figure out what it means for me. I know that there are certain regulations or certain rules on food that we don't necessarily have control over. And so part of food justice is gaining control over the food that we eat and making sure that it's good food and healthy food, not contaminated, but also that there's a lot of barriers or a lot of things that get in the way of folks being able to get to food. And so food justice is making sure we're growing food that everybody in the community, so whether you're Black, white, Asian, like culturally relevant foods to what you're used to eating, and that you have access, that they're readily right in front of you. Is this making sense a little bit? Mm-hmm. That you can access those things easier without folks tampering with your food. That's my understanding so far. Y'all can chime in for sure.
Yeah, I think that was good.
Okay.
I think, yeah, the word autonomy comes up, like just having, your own food sovereignty, just having control, like Taj said, of your food.
Right, I think. Thanks.
I wondered if you had any connection, or whether direct or just historical and culturally, to the Black Farmers Cooperative of farmers in the South who came together to challenge the unjust taking of land over the last century. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit vague about this history, but I know there have been gigantic lawsuits that have very slowly trickled through the justice system regarding this massive injustice towards Black farmers historically. Mm-hmm. And is that part of how you understand yourselves and your mission? That makes sense. Yeah,
I think it does, and starting to, coming at it from a community health aspect and loving to build and grow food for myself and the community, then you start to learn about this. I think it's there was really a concerted effort in the United States to take land away from black people. And this has really been just proven. It's actually now been ruled on, right? These cases that you know, we started out with a food system where people were growing food for their community and selling it at the market. It got bigger. It got more, there was more money involved with it. You suddenly had to get loans in order to grow your crops, to pay off the loan, and now you're at the mercy of the bank. And if the bank doesn't want to give you a loan, they can take your land, or they can give you a loan 1 year and then not the next, and they can take your land. You know, as the United States grew in this industrial system, right, we actually gave a lot of land to immigrants, right? The Homestead Act really gave a lot of the United States that was originally stewarded by the original people here. It was taken. And then it was taken again with the Reallotment Act in terms of and that farmland was given away to lots of mostly immigrants. And there were land grant institutions built to support that. And black farmers were left out of that, okay? And so you've got bankers, you've got an institution, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, that was proven to discriminate. So, I mean, that's sort of a fact of the loss of land and the effect of a sort of a continued systemic racism, right, in the United States. So, full forward, the USDA says, wow, maybe we need to do a little bit better. So we actually, and I'm not sure I should have applied, but we got a grant to try to support local farmers to get back into that system. So it's sort of come around. And that we are able to not support anybody here, but we have a couple folks trying to get folks, small farmers of color in the area, and we're also sort of extending that to urban farmers, right? How can urban farmers get a little bit of piece of USDA money that goes to farms to try to create more food for the system? And I think for us, as I know we're running out of time, we are starting to get the pressure of climate change on our local food systems. And so it's very important that we support all of the urban agriculture, all of this peri-urban agriculture we have. It's, you know, it's important for us to think about, wow, maybe if we change the laws, we can turn more farmland into apartment buildings or you know, entertainment centers, but maybe we need to keep some of that farmland, right? And those are all questions that are happening in King County as the population grows and the services for those populations are needed. And it seems easy to get a bunch of food from the Midwest and California, really, until climate change changes that or we have another disaster and we're stuck. And so that's a piece of what we're doing. And we're not going to be the solvers of it, right? But at least we could sit here and talk about it, right? And we can encourage other folks to think about that. I mean, food justice, right? Food justice is environmental justice, right? Environmental justice is social justice. It's just justice, right? It's justice. And so, like what Taj was saying, being able to get food, being able to have a job so you can buy food, have food that is accessible to you is something that's, you know, you're not forced to eat something that you don't know what it is, right? At least it has some familiarity to you. It's healthy food. And part of that is having farms close by and being able to actually have whole food for you. And so that's a piece of, I think, justice, right? Food justice, environmental justice, justice. Yeah. All right. Oh. All right. Hey.
Sorry, I hope that there's still time.
No, you're good.
Oh, hey. Hey, I'll stay. Well,
Fantastic.
no, we promised
It's okay.
the young people that is. Oh, we got plenty of time.
All right. Well, thank you all for your presentation and for all the work you've done. I had a question. Ray, you said something earlier about being inspired, having traveled, and maybe seeing other best practices. And I'm just curious, like, what inspired you? What have you seen? And even for both of you, what inspires you? I remember learning about Fannie Lou Hamer's farming collective historically, and even just what you had said before about the history of the black farmers, especially in the South. But yeah, what best practices? What have you been inspired by for all of you?
I've talked a lot. You want to talk about any inspiration? I got a lot.
The only inspiration I have really seen, these, not only inspiration, but I'm still very new, but there's a bunch of farms in Washington that we've been able to visit. There's Oxbow Farm, which is a giant farm. Aiko Farm, I think I've been there once, right? Mm-hmm.
Enumclaw.
In Enumclaw, and then we have, is that Deepa and Victor's farm? Aiko Farm?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And yeah, a few others I can't think of right now, but my only experience is here, but I hope to be going to Cuba to see some farming over there.
Pressure.
Right. Again, I was lucky that my folks did want to do some traveling, and then I was able to do some traveling, and it was connected. And so I did start to try to go to urban farms, when I traveled, and so I was lucky enough to do that. And I was actually lucky enough to go to Cuba with a couple of times on an agricultural tour, right, to see that. Cuba was a industrial agriculture country, right, in the Soviet Union sphere, right, and with the fall of the Soviet Union, they got shut off just like that. And so I understand that was a special period in Cuba, and folks had to really turn it around and start to grow a lot of their own food. And so out of that came a lot of innovative urban agriculture and agricultural practices. And so I think seeing that was something, really no matter your politics, I think you have to honor a space that's been able to try to hold their own, right, even, in, surrounded, honestly, by really a lot of pressure, from the United States. But I think that's one of the things that we try to do is I encourage folks to try to go out and just go beyond where they live to try to see other things, because then that's a vision of the future. I try to do that with school kids, and I think that's important for folks to do that. I think it's important to understand that if you're just like a plant growing in a pot, if all you can see is your neighborhood, then you're constricted. If you have the space to grow and to grow larger, right, then you can see that. And I think that's it's not something easy to offer folks, but if there's a way to expand a young person's vision of something, to share that, whether it's to share that our regenerative agriculture, really a lot of that came out of Tuskegee Institute, right, and George Washington Carver with his not just about peanuts, but by regenerating the soil, and Watley not just about selling, but having this clientele membership club that's turned into the CSA that we have today. I think part of our mission, and this is trying to share this, is to say that all cultures really have contributed to the agricultural expertise and knowledge of the United States. And I think, part of us coming from trying to raise one set of folks up, arguably the most impacted group of people, black people in the United States, is to talk about the genius that we are really building on, that the continuing to build on that genius. So, we were lucky enough to get a grant that is supporting us in terms of development and then education from King County, and they had a grant out for organizations that specifically. It was under the title of public health as a social justice issue, racism as a social justice issue, and they specifically, and it's given me a little voice, if I may, to say it's okay to say, black people really were impacted and some resources should go there. And indigenous people were impacted and some resources should go to there. And so this money has been earmarked and it's gone to organizations that have, that are run and hopefully honestly serve black people, but also indigenous people in the United States and other countries or spaces that were affected by U.S. colonialism, right? So that includes Native Hawaiians, right? That includes folks from Fiji and Tonga and Samoa, right? Those folks. And so, we tried to build coalitions along those lines, but I think, when King County can say it, you can't say it on the federal level, but you can say it in King County. And I think that gives us some voice to be proud to say, we want to be inclusive. People are welcome to come down here, but at some times and space, we want to have our space too, right? And it's okay to try to support that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would say what inspires me, I think, is my lack of food not growing up or lack of access to food growing up for sure. And I also think, my connection with the land, kind of like how we were talking about before. I feel like the land has definitely held me in many ways as I've become a young adult. Rather that's crying, rather I'm angry, screaming. And if you guys haven't, I'm a pretty fidgety person, right? I'm not meant to sit at a desk or an office. So I feel like, that's what inspires me every day, that the fact that I can just be so seen and held by the land, and also by my community and my coworkers, right? I hear all types of stuff about stories about, just people being just indoors, and I feel really grateful to just be in a space where I can, be my full self and really thrive and be myself at meetings and be myself, with our team, you know what I mean? I don't have to mask or put on a face, you know what I mean? I can just show up and be myself. And so it's the people beside me, honestly, that really inspire me and keep me going every day. And also, just the capacity that the land has to really hold me, not only me, but heal, right? My community members, people I really care about and love. And as I was going through just learning a lot, through my program and through interviewing folks at Yes Farm, a lot of people echoed the same thing, you know what I mean? It's being able to just show up and just be exactly who you want to be or who you're aspiring to be, you know what I mean? So I really feel like the land has healed me in a lot of ways, and it's I feel like it's my mission and my duty to show up for the land, to be a good steward of the land, right? Through learning through community, through learning through folks that come through, right? Just always ear on the ground type of thing. So, that's definitely what inspires me. I like that question too.
Oh, no, I was pointing to you. Sorry.
First of all, thank you so much for this lovely presentation. I was really inspired by all of your thoughts and your journeys to getting to this. I moved here from Florida, and okay. I've recently got... Oh, really? You're also from...
Oh, no, I said, okay.
Oh. And some of the things that I talk about to my family back home, they're like, wait, there's black farmers in Seattle? I'm like,
right.
Yeah, there are. But I'm just curious, maybe 5-10 years from now, what are your goals as an organization, but also even personally, what do you see for yourself individually, as a group, in terms of getting closer to the land, working towards food justice, and
You have a 5-year plan?
I'm you want to go first?
Yes, I'll share briefly. I think recently I've been able to dream about what I want to see, and I want my community, I want my family to be in a spot where we all, or not us all farming because we all don't like the same things, but we all, Yewa and I kind of talked about this too, we all share the same values, right? And so having a farm where everyone is taken care of and that they can come through, and maybe there's horses and I'm teaching kids about the horses, or teaching kids about their emotions with the horses, stuff like that. But I just see it as a place, a hub, mostly for the next generation, and young adults like myself, and elders to come in and show us the way as well, because it's just all of us make it turn.
Right.
So I don't necessarily have like a set dream when it comes to the organization. I know that there are little things, like we're a baby organization, that we're hiring new folks, we're having these new systems being put in place. So I'm really looking forward to seeing a time where Ray gets to rest for real, like rest and not think about an email, and a time where we get to rest and we get paid and we are like, this is, you're like, we're all just taken care of, you know? So just little things like that. I'm going to continue to dream. Get back to me on that. Come to the farm. But thank you for asking, too.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for myself, very similar to what Taj says, but I have a lot of folks in my family who are mentally ill, if we want to use that terminology, right? And I've seen how, like, folks in my family, my mom specifically, have been ostracized out of the community, right? Rather, for various reasons, you know what I mean? So what does it look like to have these safe spaces for folks to really exist, right? Like, I'm on spectrum. Like, how do we create spaces for the, like Taj is saying, like the next generation, right? To exist and to be and to not have to, yeah, just spaces where people can exist for real, you know what I mean? And where people can get fed and where people can, you know, like we were saying, kind of like another Yes Farm, right? Where people can take up space, where people can cook, where people can just commune. And also having these like hard conversations, right? Like, you know, I have this dream, but it's not like I'm gonna flip a switch and it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna happen overnight. It's gonna take some real like conversations, hard conversations, you know what I mean? But that's what community is to me. It's not always, you know, oh, la, 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 you know, we're holding hands, skipping down the road. It's like, no, we're butting heads because we're different people. We're aligning because we're different people. We have the same values, or we don't have the same values because we're different people, right? But it's also valuable, right, into this space because we're all here, we're all present, you know what I mean? So, yeah, what does it look like to continue to dream of a world that isn't what we're currently in, right? Like, what does it look like to imagine something that is beyond our scope, you know what I mean, that truly is inclusive and not just this fluff word that's being thrown around, you know what I mean? Like, what does true wellness look like for each individual and as a collective? I feel like Ray was saying, yeah, we're limited, but we're not. Like, our creativity is so boundless, you know what I mean? And it really shows, like, when we're all in a room together, right? When we have Seattle U come through and have these conversations, right? Like, all different types of people coming into space, but cultivating this vision. And I remember thinking like, oh, like I'm about to get off the grid and like have my farm with my boo and my little cows and da-da-da, right? But being a part of the Black Farm, that's not what it is. That's not what it really is, right? To be able to have vacations, to be able to have that, you need support, you need community members, right? You need people asking you the hard questions. You need people, you know, to pat you on the back. You need a little bit of everything, right? So I think really, yeah, having true authenticity coming where people can be truly authentic in who they are and who they want to be, I feel like it's definitely like my vision of a space, and along with some animals and, you know, stuff like that. And I think to add, yeah, being from the Bay Area and Oakland, a lot of like my peers and stuff face just a lot, you know what I mean? So I think, you know, even living in Seattle for the past 8 years, a lot of my homegirls and my homies come out and they're like, wow, it's like such a slower pace, you know what I mean? Or we can go on a walk. It's just very different, right? So from that kind of idea, cultivate this bigger idea of like, okay, what does it really look like for each individual to feel safe, right? Your car's not getting broken into, or you're not getting literally like jumped, you know what I mean, for no reason, because resources are so scarce, right? So I think really, like what Ray was saying and Taj was saying, imagining an authentic space, not just, you know, but for each individual where they can come and just be and commune, you know, so, yeah.
I think we've got time for one last question.
Is there any documentary or book resource that you recommend we watch that would, if you're not familiar with urban farming, would be a good resource and just to show us where we are and where we could go with it?
Honestly, I'm just now getting back into reading, so I have Farming While Black is one.
Yes.
Yeah, there's you know, I think it's been inspirational for us. It's not urban they describe a little bit more rural farm, but Farming While Black, Leah Penniman has written a book and got some traction about that. I think it talks about farming, it talks about technique, it also talks about the history, it brings in stories, which is something we didn't explicitly talk about, but the stories are, I think, important. And so that's where I think I would go right now. There's going to be an opening of a film, Common Ground, coming. It's the second of the films. It's kind of corny with Woody Harrelson and some stuff, but it does give you a little bit of a good technical look at the effect of industrial farming on climate change and how that can be redone, and actually we can do a lot of climate mitigation based on changing those practices, and so that's a really encouraging, I guess. I think I'll end us here. In 5 years, first of all, I'll be actually forced to start to take Social Security, so. I hope to be more on the board and advising rather than out there. It was out digging today, which I love. So that's great. I think, and part of that is the growth of the organization and understanding that nonprofits, or at least last 5 to 7 years, most of them, right? And so here we are in this period. And honestly, if we didn't have the space, that gives you, really an anchor, and you have a resource that you want to share. So that really helps us out. But I think, I'm lucky enough to be able to meet and be open to people thinking about, well, what is it that we need to do to set the systems together so we don't burn out? So we're investing in that. How do we invest in structures, again, that'll keep us going? How do we invest in someone that'll help us with development to go out there and try to get some support for this? And I think I just want to say I want to end with an invite in that if you want to see some of the things that we do, we're partnering with the Urban League of King County, Seattle, up at Yesser Terrace Park. It's a third year of Black Earth Day, but you don't have to be black to be there. You're very welcome. They're going to have a lot of great food. There's another organization, Out the Dirt, that tries to...
Out the Mud.
Out the Mud, sorry, that tries to create urban gardens. And so you're all welcome to come on Saturday. That's listed. I think it's probably going to start about 11.
Check out the Instagram.
Oh, yeah. Check out our Instagram. Check out the Urban League.
Oh, yeah.
And then, we have a website and we have Instagram that the young people do. It's Black Farmers Collective. We'd love for you to just check it out. If you want to support us, you're certainly welcome to do that. But really supporting us also means just showing up and seeing what we do. So we have some work party opportunities on Saturdays, but this coming Saturday, sort of as a kickoff for Earth Week, right? And we'd like to invite that.
Oh, I was just going to recommend a book, one more
book. Oh, please.
I'm reading this book currently called One Straw Revolution, and it's very good. It talks a lot about, just how in the Western world we put so much labor into farming, and how do we, commune and have this interdependence with the earth using permaculture. Like, what does it look like to have, weeds in your beds, right? Because it actually helps you with abundance of your crops and actually helps with the biodiversity, right? And making your soil stay healthy. So that's another book I would definitely recommend. I've been talking about it for probably the past 2 weeks, but as I'm getting back into reading,
that's the title again?
One Straw Revolution. I can't pronounce his name. He's a Japanese farmer, but yeah.
All right. Please give Ray, Taj, and Yewa a round of applause.
Thank you. You all did a great job. Thank you.
Really, so amazing. Thank you so much.